So I'm going to go through ice mixed climbing. You can also lump in alpine climbing there for avalanche awareness. And there's just a few things I'm going to go through for you guys. There's just three main topics. First one would be specific hazards to climbers. So we've maybe been talking about skiing, and they do overlap quite a bit. There are some specific ones. Information sources that are specific to ice climbing, and things to watch out for during your day. So we have a plethora of ice climbing in this area. Plethora is a wicked word. I just used it for the first time. It's probably some of the best in the world, right? People come from all over the world here, and the problem that comes with ice climbing is that you're so scared during the whole time that you're not really looking out kind of what's going on. You're more thinking, do I have the power to actually finish the pitch? You know, you're worrying about protection, how many skis did I bring? There's just so much going on. And maybe you end up forgetting that there's a 2,000-foot slope below the route and another 3,000 feet of slope above the route. So before I get into the topics, I just want to, how many people ice climb here again? Just throw up your hands. Okay, there's quite a few. And here's an awkward question. So how many of you ice climbers that have ice climbed in avalanche terrain have ever worn a transceiver, a shovel, and a probe? Right on. Okay. So out of the skiers here, how many of you go out with without a transceiver, shovel, and probe? Same. Okay. So obviously, ice climbers know something you guys don't. And I think the question I have is, why is that? You know, we're going into the same terrain that skiers do, probably bigger terrain for the most part, but nobody wears them. So maybe some of the ice climbers can actually give me some suggestions why that is. I'm not saying I'm any different a lot of the time. Yeah?
Well, right, I choose terrain that doesn't have avalanche.
Okay, good answer. Everybody talk your way out of that one. Okay. How about people that have gone into avalanche terrain? Climbers, why have you chose not to? Anybody? I mean, some people, yeah, go ahead.
When they go out on the low hazard days.
Okay, low hazard days, sure.
You're going to die.
That's a point. Okay, some people would have. So there's a number of things. People say, well, yeah, if I get blown off the climb, then there's no help for me anyway. Some people say, well, you know, you just don't do it. You don't go out on the high hazard days. But as we know with snow science, it's not exact science, right? So I'm not saying one thing is right or wrong. I'm just throwing it out there for you guys to think about. So this got posed to me a few years ago as well. And since then, you know, there's some climbs I choose not to for that reason. You know, you don't want to get blown off, and it's not really going to matter anyway. But for climbs, let's say, that have high, you know, or a lot of terrain getting up to the climb, for example, a lot of times you are on skis. I will take a shovel, a probe, and a transceiver now, and if it's on the climb here, there's no hazard above, so I'll leave it at the base, right? So that's just an example of maybe, you know, why you should. And if you really think about it, the terrain you're getting into a lot of times is pretty severe, right? So, you know, and you end up in places like this, and, you know, most ice climbs, alpine climbs, are the garbage chutes of the mountain. So everything you should avoid in skiing, you are doing ice climbing a lot of the time, right? Unless it's, you know, a place that has no hazard whatsoever. So there's probably more going on in general. And it's kind of like, okay, well, how can I even start to assess the situation? And that's just going to come with experience. But predicting the hazard above the climb, we talk about these start zones. And, you know, you're going to be climbing on some climbs under these all day long, maybe for 8, 10, 12 hours. What's the hazard above your climb? And I think if you look at, you can look at maps, you can do a number of things, but when it comes down to it, you're not really going to be able to predict 100%. You know, you're not going to be able to go to the top and, you know, do a snow profile in the start zone and, you know, go back down 5,000 feet and then start your climb, right? It's not really realistic. So features on the route, a lot of times, ice, alpine, mixed climbs, they tend to have a pitch of climbing, and then they'll have a long, you know, snow slope or a small snow slope in between. And on these types of features, what we tend to get in the Rockies anyways, we tend to get these lenses, so a hard slab in quite steep terrain on these snow bits. And a lot of times we'll be walking up into them, you get top of the pitch, and you start punching through a really tough slab. And if that thing goes, that's a surfboard you don't want to really be on. So think about those types of things. Cornicing on a route that can trigger an avalanche is another example of that. And then recent activity, as you're going to the climb, you're looking at similar types of slopes and seeing if they've slid. I found all right, so they have mentioned guidebooks here. And guidebooks will give you a general sense of, you know, the avalanche hazard. But I think it's really important for you guys is to get a list of climbs that don't have avalanche hazards. And actually, when you look through that list, you find there's probably not a ton of them, right? But it's good to get that. So you go to a climb, it's like, okay, well, it says it has high hazard. I'm seeing size 3s rip off this. Okay, I'm going to go somewhere else, right? Then you can also talk about observations on your way to the climb while you're driving, right? It's one thing to be walking in and see things go on, but you can also get a sense of what's happening in your car before you even leave, and that way you can end up back at Loggins and not waste a coffee. And then web. So specifically for ice climbers, you know, there's Grav Sports. That's one website that people use quite often. Inflated egos and things, but sometimes someone will have pertinent information to ice climbers as far as well. I actually saw some big slides come down this climb yesterday, and you might be going, okay, well, right on, it's slid, I can go, right? Or you'd be like, oh, I'm just not going to bother. And then another tool I've been using quite a bit is Google Earth. I don't know if you guys have used that quite a bit, but now it's high resolution in a lot of areas. So I'll actually look at some of the bigger climbs, scan around, see what's above the climb, and you can get a sense. You know, you can put the little crosshairs on the top of the climb, and it gives you an altitude, so you can see that there's like 3,000 meters of slope above you. All right. Another thing on the web is what Lisa was talking about. That's the 8 system here, 1, 2, and 3 for classifications. Not all ice climbs are on here, but a lot of the more popular ones are. Okay, so it's the same kind of criteria, you know, simple terrain, infrequent avalanches, challenging, you're making your own, you know, quite a few decisions in avalanche terrain, and complex, there's just no avoiding it, okay?